right, welcome back. As promised, the Superintendent of Terrebonne Parish Schools, Philip Martin. He's been a frequent guest here on Bayou Time, and we appreciate his transparency. And, you know, Philip, before I was thinking about how to get in this interview, because there's a lot of information circulating around Terrebonne Parish, and I said, well, I'm going to do it the same way I tell everybody when they have a question to me about the school system. I said, have you ever called Philip? Well, no, I never thought about doing that. Well, he's the superintendent, so a lot of information circulating. And I heard as early as this week, you had originally announced you were going to be retiring in June. We all knew that. But now on the street that you may be leaving this week. And I want to give you a chance to address that. Any truth to that?
There may be some wishing there was some truth to that, some wishful thinking perhaps somewhere, but no, there's nothing to that, Martin.
And you know me, I'm just going to ask you.
Well, sure. And I had not heard that, rumor, but that's purely a rumor, not based on any factual information, if that's floating around.
Well, I always tell.
And I hope that's not hurting somebody's feelings, but no, there's nothing to that.
Well, I always tell people, whether it's you or Gordy or Archie or whoever, whenever somebody asks me, I say, well, I'll have him on the show and I'll ask him. And they go, really? Yeah, I'll ask him. So I asked you, so there's no rumor to that.
Good Lord willing, my health holds up, which I'm very healthy, so I'm not anticipating anything. But
so you have till June.
To June, that's correct.
Till June, all right. And of course, we talked about this before, but the last year of your being superintendent has really been on COVID and damage from Hurricane Ida. So it's really it hasn't really been with curriculum, has it?
You know, Martin, tying it into retirement, I should have retired a year earlier, and I say that in jest, but it has been a difficult time. Dealing with COVID and Hurricane Ida, and now COVID again.
And it rears its ugly head again. It's talking to a lot of medical professionals. This one's more contagious than any of them, but they know how to treat it a little better. And if people have built up their immunities better, it seems to be doing less. Is that what you're finding?
Well, I think it's probably a little too early to tell for the school system. We had staff meeting this morning, and obviously COVID and our response and mitigation efforts that we make was the primary topic of conversation. As you well know, the governor has issued a new list of COVID recommendations, and masks are a recommendation. And we're going to follow the governor's recommendation and recommend masks. I recommend kids pay attention in class. I recommend kids do their homework. I recommend they go to school. There's a lot of things we recommend that we don't make you do. We may like for you to do it, but if you choose not to, that's the position. We're going to recommend.
Recommend and mandate are two different things.
Vastly different. Now, if the governor should ever mandate, obviously we will follow the rules and laws of the land of Louisiana, but recommendations, we will pass along that recommendation.
Let me ask you, do you think we're at a point now, Philip, where, matter of fact, Joni and Darla were talking about this at lunch, is that we've been beat up so bad with COVID and Hurricane Ida that people are mentally tired, they're physically tired in a lot of cases, and that you tell them wear a mask, they ain't doing it, they tired.
There's no question, Martin, that I think our community is stressed. I sense that, I see that, I know that's to be true from our parents and our kids, that, enough's enough, and it's no one's fault. COVID is no one's fault, Ida is no one's fault, but yet individuals are bearing that cumulative stress brought on by both of those factors. And I think that manifests itself in different ways in different people, but it does have an effect. I think people, some maybe a little more short-tempered, maybe a little less patient, frustrated easier. Those are all very human emotions that when you've been stressed long enough, and obviously we recognize that we work in a school system, we work nothing but people, and kids are our business, and we see that with our kids, and we are dealing with that in a more of a consoling, counseling than discipline, because some kids have been through some, I was speaking with a parent this morning, they're still in a little FEMA trailer. It's a camper trailer, a whole family. That's okay for a camping trip. Living that way.
For 3 or 4 days.
Living that way
Right.
creates a unique set of circumstances. Like I said, the whole ball of wax with COVID and Ida, it's easy to say those have been stressful, but until you actually hear and speak to people who are dealing with that and the different ways they've had to deal with that. COVID, practically every family has been touched by COVID, either very, very profoundly, people being hospitalized or dying, or having family members sick with it. And obviously Ida touched a big portion of our community, if not our entire community. But we must persevere and we must remain optimistic. I am the eternal optimist. That we will get through COVID, we will get through Ida, there will be a recovery, there will be a period behind both. We're not there yet. As the governor's recommendations, some of the things that slightly changed we will do. These are still recommendations, but the quarantining used to be 10 days, it's now reduced to 5. We're going to do that. I think that's going to help somewhat. That a lot of times there's very healthy people who had to stay locked up for 10 days.
Right. And a lot of you ask me questions, and to be honest with you, and Philip, I'll be honest with you too, I go, well, have y'all called the superintendent? And almost all of them say, well, no. And I'm going, so why are you calling me? And so I'm asking you, I guess they come to me because they know I'm going to ask you. When we talk about platooning and data, and a lot of people say, well, what's the difference between platooning or virtual? Let's go virtual. What's the difference between virtual teaching and learning from an actual teacher in the classroom? I'm really asking you 2 separate questions, but let's go first. Virtual versus an actual teacher. Is there any data coming out that shows that one is better than the other?
Martin, the data is dramatic in the difference. The data is compelling in the difference. The data drives a decision that there's no decision to make if you have a choice. There are times you have no choice for virtual, but when you have the choice, the data is overwhelmingly shows that in-person, live teacher in the classroom is so much more effective for learning, and that's what a school system is for. It's not for the convenience of the teachers or what someone happens to like better. That's for ice cream. You picked ice cream you like better. For learning, what is best for the kids' learning? In person. The state just recently released district performance scores. The state did a plunge in performance scores. Terrebonne didn't. We didn't do virtual. We didn't do online. We had every grade, every school, every day.
I'd imagine that if you're a teacher and you're listening to this, you're going, well, that's pretty encouraging because we're needed in the classroom.
Yeah. Well, teachers know that the learning that they provide in the classroom is far superior than online. Now, I'm not saying online doesn't have a place or virtual. It's when you have no other options. But if you have an option of in-person with a teacher, scores came out. The state superintendent, the data is clear. Having students in school face-to-face with teachers is essential, Dr. Kate Brumlin. Distance learning put damper on performance. I could go on and on and on. I have numerous pieces of data, but probably a very compelling one. I know your audience can't see this, but this is legal size sheets of paper I'm holding that lists every district in Louisiana. The orange line, I don't know if y'all can pick that up.
Yep, see it.
The orange line is Terrebonne Parish. We're 14th out of 76 districts in Louisiana. Here's the state average down here, by the way. I may have to pick it up a little bit. We jumped so dramatically, although our district performance score remained the same. That was remarkable that everybody else has failed. Everybody else was compelled to do virtual, online, AB, because they had capacity issues. It wasn't their fault. We didn't have capacity issues. We could take all the kids in a room, and we did. The data statewide, the online learners were substantially lower than the in-person learners. So as the lead educator in Terrebonne Parish, that was a no-brainer for me. You know, now, is platooning the perfect thing? No. It certainly has some issues with it, but is it better than online and in person? The data clearly supports that it is. Now, there are some issues, not debating there aren't issues with platooning, but platooning is what platooning is. I spoke to a fellow superintendent in another parish when they had the big flood, they platooned. So it's not the best schedule, but it's better than the other options available to us. And the data is very supportive of that. The data is like, you don't have to be an analyst to study it very long to realize with a teacher, and I don't think anybody was surprised by that. I certainly was not. You know, parking a 15-year-old in front of a computer 6 hours a day and think real severe focused learning is going to take place while having a teacher there to redirect, to refocus, to sometimes correct, it's just common sense. You don't need a PhD in education to know that that's probably not the ideal situation. It's better than nothing. Mm-hmm. It's better than doing nothing, but you use that option when it's the only option you have. Yeah. So those are some of the things that we go into decision making when we look at that, and we are a data-driven district. We rely heavily on data. I'm not so much into surveys and into opinions. That's all fine if you want asking what somebody wants for lunch. But when it comes to children's education, what do the facts say is most impactful? What's the best methodology? What data supports that? There's no shock or surprise. In person, teacher in the classroom, nothing's beat that yet.
But let me say this too, we got about a minute left. And I always tell people that come up to me and they say, would you please ask this person? Not just you, I'm talking about anybody who's in office. And I always say, in person, or pick up the phone, and if somebody calls you or calls the parish president or calls the sheriff, that way they get to hear it. Plus, you get to hear the passion that goes in the answer. You're not seeing a blanketed counter method on Facebook or some other social media where they're not represented correctly. So I guess my advice to everybody is pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them.
Yep. Thank you, Martin. You put that very well. And I'm working with a group of parents now trying to come up with some resolution to some of the issues. I can't promise we will fix all of them, but we're going to try, and we're going to be receptive to listen. And but at the end of the day, we'll still have to do what we feel is in the best interest of kids and the kids' education.
All right, so in 2022, let's make a new resolution. Pick up the phone and ask about it.
You got it.
All right, Philip, thank you so much. Good luck to you, too. All right, we'll be right back with more. Don't go away.